sun is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your action for the Monster Mile at Dover. We'll run 400 laps this weekend for the Citizen Soldier 400. With qualifying rained out, we'll be channeling our inner Yoda this week to try to use the force and pick this week's plays as the field has been set on the chase standings, which makes Daily Fantasy NASCAR a bit of a nightmare. With the track breakdown, Liehr.
All right, thanks, Poppa. Average number of cautions here is 7 times, but could exceed that as guys will be pushing their cars to the limit with the chase on the line in the round of 12. That only means bumping going into the corners. This is an oval track where turns are 24 degrees. The track is 48 feet wide, and the straightaways are 58 feet on the turns. This is a smaller track and is harder to pass, so most of the drivers who are up front will stay up front. Interesting fact here about Dover is 7 out of the last 10 races have been won by Chevrolets, which Jimmy Johnson has won 4 of those 7 races, and 5 of those 7 have been won by Hendrick Motorsports.
Wow. Yeah, the weather this weekend has been and will continue to be a concern for us, as we have a 50% chance of thunderstorms washing out practices 2 and 3 on Saturday, and we have a 20% chance of rain for Sunday's race on October 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC Sports Network. With that said, let's get into the burning rubber picks this week. Liehr?
Well, my little guy's asleep next door, so burning rubber Monster Mile, baby.
All right, man. Who's your first pick to burn some rubber this week, buddy?
My first burning rubber pick this week, Poppa, is Chase Elliott, the number 24 Mountain Dew vehicle this week. Here we're in the 3rd week of the chase for the Sprint Cup. Chase Elliott's been looking good. He doesn't have much history here at Dover, the Sprint Cup, except for a previous start here where it was earlier this season, where he started 13th and finished 3rd. He did not lead any laps during that race, but with accumulated 41 fantasy points and plus with the 10 place differential points, he got you a 51. But back then he didn't cost as much as he does this week when he cost $8,900. With qualifying being rained out, he will be starting from the 9th position, his current position where he has in the chase. Today he was running really good, though, running in the 6th spot in practice, and keeps looking good and more comfortable in that car each and every week in that 24. Like I said, he'll be sporting the Mountain Dew vehicle this week, but pay attention to his times tomorrow. If he's in the top 5, no doubt he will be in most of my lineups this weekend. I just kind of have a Rain Man feeling about Chase Elliott this week. I really think that him and his team are going to step up to the plate and, take home a victory here at Dover this weekend in the Monster Mile. And I just really have a good feeling about him. And his cost is really good. I mean, $8,900, you can't beat it with a guy that's starting in the top 10 and has a chance to actually take home the race this weekend. So I don't know if he's going to get a huge, be that huge dominator and separator for you this weekend. But I do believe he will accumulate quite a few points because let's be honest here. We've got quite a few points up for grabs this weekend with being 400 laps. So with that amount of points for, leading laps and then also dominator points for laps, fastest laps, he's definitely got a chance to move up in the front. And it's also going to play a point too, as far as, wrecks and how the pit stops and all that goes. So I'm definitely all about the Chase Elliott this weekend, my friend.
Yeah, dude, here's the thing. I'm glad you brought up the laps led and the fastest laps dominator point style, because this is where I have a problem with Chase Elliott. If he's not going to lead laps or be the fastest car, you can't afford him even at $8,900, even though I think he's underpriced, right? Like, he has to lead laps and be the fastest car and do it at least a clip of 60-plus laps. I'm just not sure that that's the case for him this year. I love Elliott, and I think that he's making great strides as a driver. I'm just not sure he's in the position that you want to have him this week. I just have other drivers dominating this race, and I can't afford to put him on that lineup. And like I said, if I don't get those dominator points out of him, there's not enough place differential points to make up the difference. I'm just worried that he won't pay off salary to win GPPs like I need him to.
No, I definitely understand your position on that one for sure.
The reason why is because I have the race breaking down with my first burn rubber pick is Harvick, and it should surprise no one, as you guys know me as the king of chalk. So he's 10,900 and literally the most expensive play on the board. And good Lord, that is pricey at 10,900. And what it does to your lineups is not something pleasant. But just like in life, you get what you pay for. And Harvick is a beast who has tamed the mile monster. Harvick last year led 355 laps here and won the race last fall. In June, he led 117 laps until Jimmy Johnson missed a gear on the restart and caused a 16-car pileup that got Harvick, Truex, and various other people mixed up into it. I think Harvick has the chops to get it done here again. He starts sixth. He has a really fast car, and in practice, they are so comfortable with the car that all they were doing was doing long lap runs, trying to figure out how they were going to long run this racetrack. I love when I see a car that's that confident that before qualifying, they're just going out and trying to figure out how best they can run a track. I love Harvick even with that expensive price tag. Liehr, your thoughts?
No, I totally agree with you, man. I mean, last week he was, definitely the one that you had to take down the GPP. And congratulations to him and the number 4 team on an awesome victory last week, especially coming from where they were from week 1 when they just absolutely got taken over there at the Ninja Turtles 400. But I really think that they have great momentum coming off that win last week. I just don't know if they're going to, saddle back a little bit and pull the reins back because obviously last week they had to come out and really lay the hammer down in order to make it to the next stage. So, but I don't know if he's really going to be doing that this week. I know starting 6th, is going to be one of those positions that he could definitely move up really quick in the field and get up front and lead a bunch of laps. And obviously with his last, handful of, last 4 races he's had here, he's led over 90 laps in each one of those races. So, but at 10,900 being the most expensive guy, is that something that you can absolutely afford? It's going to be pick your poison, really. Will I have exposure to him? Yes. But do I really think he's going to be one of the dominators this weekend, and especially at that price point? Honestly, I think that he probably won't win the race this weekend. I think he'll definitely have some laps led. He'll get some significant points. But when you roll down to it, I think he's going to accumulate enough points, but not be probably within the top 4 to 5 within the points range. So I think that you're probably going to be overpaying for Harvick this week. But even if he has a top 10 finish, but if he leads a ton of laps, he's totally going to be worth his price point. So you're definitely going to have exposure to him. Me personally, I'm just not going to be on him like I was last week because the pressure is not on that team to finish real well this week since they've already secured that next spot to the next stage. So I'm going to play that into a factor in my teams this weekend.
I get your pressure argument. I'm just breaking down the other way. Like, I think that because he has no pressure, he can go out there and just doesn't care and can try to run for the win and will at the beginning of the race and just stay up front and lead laps all day. And I'll get to the other guy that I have doing that here in a second. But before we do, it's time for your second burning rubber pick, since we are down a man with Adrian getting his internet taken out by a rogue construction crew there in Georgia. So, Liehr, who's your second burning rubber pick, buddy?
My second burning rubber guy, I'm going to roll with the number 20 team. I'm going with Matt Kenseth. Kenseth is obviously a seasoned vet here with 35 races under his belt. He was a must-own play last week in your lineups, putting up the most fantasy points out of any NASCAR driver last week with 105. He started 8th and finished 2nd.
And who was it that told you to play Kenseth last week?
Oh yeah, that was Big Poppa.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we had the combo there because I said I wanted to play Truex, and I know Truex didn't win last week, but he was still one of those guys you had to have to take down the GPP. So, but you comboed those two together. You definitely had a good shot at taking it down, which I did have a majority of that on that, so it was good. Actually took down my satellite last week, first place, so I'm very, very happy and proud about that. But got 13th in the qualifier, was hoping to do better than that, but I'll take it and roll with it into this weekend. But that number 20 team is going to be hungry for the win this week after, placing second. And, in their minds, they should have probably taken home the win last week. And Kenseth has won here at the Monster Mile and did that this last, spring here. Kenseth has 3 wins here at Dover, 16 top 5s, 23 top 10s, and has led 904 laps overall in his career here. And he's looking to take that total over the $1,000 or $1,000, but 1,000 lap mark here at Dover. So, this week he's starting from the 4th position on the starting grid. The best part about Kenseth, though, is last week he was 10,100. This week, even though he scored the most points last week, he went down $400 in salary. He's down under that 10K mark at 9,700. And with the race this team put together last week, and this is the type of track that Kenseth really likes. He likes those short tracks, and he also likes tracks that have the degree of banking on it too. So even though last week was more of a flat track, he still is a good car at these types of tracks because it is a short track. But Kenseth's driving style, he's definitely going to be a major play for me this weekend and a major play for those Dominator points, specifically starting in that 4th position. So, and the salary relief, it just helps you out with trying to fill those additional drivers on the bottom tier guys. So I'm definitely going to be all over the Matt Kenseth train this weekend.
I actually love the Kenseth play again this week. I think that car is just reaching the right form for the chase, and they are dialed in. I like all the other JGR cars as well, and I think that honestly they're going to go under-owned this week. I have a lot of people sitting on Kez and Team Penske this week. I have a lot of people sitting on Harvick this week. On Team Hendrick. Sorry. I think a lot of people, because of prices and because Team JGR hasn't looked necessarily the best in the limited practice data we have, and we don't have qualifying, so I think they might be under-owned as opposed to what we normally see out of Team JGR ownership percentages. I wouldn't count out Hamlin, Cousin Carl, or Rowdy either. I love those guys' plays, but the one I'm wanting to make, and you guys might laugh at me, is my next burn rubber pick, and that is the affiliated JGR car in Martin Truex Jr. at 10,600. In the spring, he led 47 laps here before getting caught up in that Johnson mess I talked about earlier. The real argument, in my opinion, is that there's no other team in NASCAR that has the current form of the Furniture Row Racing team. His price, his starting position will deter ownership as people jump to cheaper options that are starting on the pole or a few spots back to try to get place differential. Take that into consideration as well, that he hasn't won here since 2007. I think that you're going to be able to get Truex at an extremely low ownership percentage for who he is. I think this might be the week to play, and I think there are going to be very few people that have enough insight, enough guts to put Truex and Kenseth on a lineup together and say that your race vision is the two of them dominating the race for 100-plus laps apiece, in which case they both easily return their 10,000-plus salaries. Those are the two guys I'm starting most of my lineups with this week, so I'm encouraging you to do the same, whether you think it's chalk or not. I think both of these cars, with nothing really on the line, are going to go out to race, to win this race, and get bonus points. So I have them both just dominating this race, Liehr. What do you have, buddy?
Well, I'm always going to have an affinity for my boy Martin Truex Jr. Obviously my favorite driver on the circuit, but just listen to these last 4 fantasy points that the number 78 team has put together. So starting with the Bojangles Southern 500, we got 82 points, 136 points, 93 points, and last week he scored 89 points. I mean, that's the type of player that you have to have when it comes to these type of races. And, these short tracks with, a lot of laps. So you got a lot of Dominator points up for grabs. And with him starting, I guarantee with him being the second, he's going to start on the inside because the preferred position here on starts and restarts is going to be that outside position. But when they start the race, that lower line is going to be the preferred line until they get some rubber put down on the track. And then there's going to be a couple different grooves that they'll be able to use here. So, I definitely think that Truex is going to lead, have a chance to lead a ton of laps here, and I really think he has a good chance of also staying up front as well. The thing that just hinders me this week is just how much he costs, and I know that he was about the same last week at 10,400, and I was all about him. And this week he's obviously starting in the same position. I don't know. It was hard to put lineups together last week because I was really fishing for the bottom tiered guys, and I don't know. I'm thinking this week that I'm gonna probably roll with majority of one probably really high tier guy, and then a lot of middle tiers, and maybe just put in the lower one of the lower tier pump plays, but. Definitely love Martin Truex Jr. I still think he's definitely the favorite to win the championship this season. And that team's obviously moved on to the next stage with having, the first win under their belt at Chicagoland. So I think he's just going to go out there. He's going to drive his car. Him and Cole Pern are going to, log some good laps out there, and just hopefully nothing happens to them. But I'm definitely going to have some exposure to Martin Truex, just not as much as I probably normally would, just because of the fact that I think that there's just a couple other drivers that I think are going to be more hungrier, if I could even say that, to win the race. And so I think that they're just going to kind of play it out and see what happens, and not necessarily go for the glory the whole race, because it is a long race. I mean, let's be honest here; it's 400 laps. So,
Right.
I definitely like Truex for
Which
sure.
is the reason why I have a problem with your one superstar approach. Like, if that one superstar leads 330 laps, you're absolutely right to go that route. But if this race is going to be split up in chunks as to who leads it, and they're going to be roughly 100 lap chunks, like, you're going to need to find multiple of those studs to get this done. Like, one guy won't get you there, and the middle tier place differential guys aren't going to matter because they aren't going to amass enough points, right?
Oh no, I definitely
100
agree
laps
with
of
you
being the fastest car and of being the lead car is 75 bonus points, bro. Like, that's enough to get anyone there.
Oh yeah, no, dude, I totally agree with you when it comes to the dominators, and you have to lead laps at this racetrack. You got to have fastest laps and laps led to take down the GPPs and your cash games this weekend. I'm talking about when it comes to pricing. When I mean middle tier guys, so I'm talking about the Kansas, the Hamlins, the Logano's, the Jimmy Johnsons, the Elliots, the Larsons. That's what I'm talking about.
Right, fair enough. And as long as you have them all leading laps and being able to compete,
Sure.
I honestly don't think that there are cars that can compete with those two. Like, I've got a couple of cars that can compete with Harvick and Truex, and other than those cars that I'm sprinkling in, that's pretty much where I'm going this week. But as you can see, I want to spend a lot of money, so we need to find sources of value. Liehr, take us to your first value pick, buddy.
All right. First value play this week. I'm actually going to go with a guy that I don't pick too often, but I just couldn't deny the history that he's had here. And then also, he was performing very, very well today in that first practice. But it's also going to depend on, too, how he does tomorrow. But I'm going to save big money at Menards. I'm going with Paul Menard in the number 27 team, RCR. Menard is one of those kind of love-hate relationships with, that you have a fantasy driver that kind of mimics your real life relationships that you've had with, some of the women in your life. But Menard has started here 18 times. He's got 0 wins, 0 top 5s, and he's only got 3 top 10s. But his average start here is 19.3 with an average finish of 18.3. And this week he rolls off the starting grid at 26th. And like I said, today he was practicing really well. He was 8th fastest in practice in the first practice. So, he likes these smaller type tracks, especially with his high banking, and has some good stats here and other high banking short tracks like Bristol. But his best attribute this week is maybe it's not even, what he's done on the track. It's his cost. I mean, he's $6,200, and somebody with his type of equipment and being in one of the main staples of NASCAR when it comes to teams and RCR. I mean, you're not going to find too many other drivers in that that tier. I mean, you do have Danica Patrick, with Stuart Haas, and then Eric Amarola, but even then, I mean, that's a smaller team as well. But you're not going to find that price point with guys that have the type of equipment that Paul Menard is getting thrown his way. And, he's just been one of those guys that, like I said, love-hate relationship. And he's on his off week this week as far as his points. So out of his last 4 races, he scored 36, -6, 30, 8, So this week he's bound to score double-digit points, specifically two. With his practice times and being in that top 10, if he can go from 26 to a top 10 finish, for a $6,200 price point, sign me up all day, every day.
Right, dude. Like, in all honesty, all he needs to do is finish in the teens, and you're more than paying off that salary. Actually, even if he finishes top, like high 20, like low 20s, sorry, you're gonna finish that off. Like, you're gonna pay off that price tag. I love this play. I'm all about it. I was all about saving big money at Menards before you told me you wanted to make this as a value play. So I went elsewhere to find another value play. It's just the right play this week. You're not going to find a driver in better equipment with better place differential potential than him. And as you can tell, I need to save money to get the guys I want in lineups. So I definitely will be using Menard a little bit. That brings me to a guy that's a little bit more expensive than what I want, but he's another one of the guys that are a place differential play that I think you want to be on. And especially if you're straying away from the paying up for the superstar studs everywhere and trying to chase those, you're going to want to chase a guy that has the potential for the most place differential points. And I think that guy is Ryan Blaney at 8,000. I realize he's super expensive for what he should be, but that's okay. He's actually priced about right for the point return you get on him. He only has one Sprint Cup race here, and he finished 8th. He is starting 20th this time, and is one of my, like I said, the personal favorites for place differential. He's as close to consistent as a 40-point guy as you can find when he starts 20 plus. If you go back and look through his race history, basically every time he starts outside the top 20, he gets you right around that 40-point mark. He's going to get you solid place differential, and at $8,000, I think that's a play you're going to want to make, especially if you're not on the superstar drivers. A lot of people will not pay for Blaney at that price tag and where he's starting. I think that's going to be a serious mistake, especially in GPPs this week. Liehr, your thought?
I'm right there with you as far as the ownership percentage on this guy, because at $8,000, people are going to look the opposite direction. They're either going to go up from there, or they're going to want to pick guys down from there. They're not really going to want to go in that middle tier, that $8,000 price point, especially for a guy, one, that's not in the chase, but two, he's kind of starting right there at the 20th position. So, he was practicing 22nd as far as his, first practice today, but make sure you look tomorrow on what his second and third practice will be in the long runs, because I really think that team has got some good momentum going, and he's had some decent weeks here in the last couple of weeks, especially at Chicagoland. He had a 64 where he started 22nd and finished 4th, and then last week he had good positive place differential too, 16th to 12th. And then 4 weeks ago at the Southern 500, he started 20th and finished 13th. So he's got some. He's just like Chase Elliott. As this year has gone by, his experience of going from track to track and being used to on the top circuit of NASCAR, getting exposure to that, he's really becoming coming into his own and really taking that. And they're definitely going to move that into next season with the Wood Brothers Racing. And I definitely like Ryan Blaney, and I will have some exposure to him specifically because I really think he's just going to be criminally underowned. I'm talking like maybe even sub 6-7%, which if you can get a guy like that, and if he performs, that's going to be your complete separator right there. So in a track like this, to where we've got a lot of laps and a lot of things can happen here. Just a couple wrecks here and there, and he could be in the top 10, top 5. So anything is a possibility, and Blaney has definitely proven that he's got the talent to hang with these guys, and I definitely like the play, bro.
Yeah, no, he's going to get you 40-plus points as long as he finishes in the teens. If there's some kind of wreck where he gets in, and we've seen this from him previously in the season, if he gets in the tens, you're looking at 55-plus points. If he gets probably even closer to 60, if he gets top 5, you're looking at a guy that's going to be 75 to 80 points, right? That's a guy you cannot fade to win a GPP. And if you're getting a guy that scores 70 to 80 points and he's 6% owned, hello all the money, right? Like, that's why I'm all about him. So, Liehr, I see you've got a guy that's a little bit more value than that. Who's your next value play, buddy?
Well, as far as my second value guy, I thought that I would not be mentioning this guy's name anymore in the 2016 shows, but I'm actually going to be going with Clint Boyer as my second value guy. But here he's rearing his ugly face again in my write-up page. But Boyer's really impressed me lately with how well he's done with the equipment that he's been driving. He has always been a really, really good short track racer, obviously stemming back to his dirt track days when he was growing up in Kansas. But last week he scored 37 points. And for a guy who's, starts 28th this week, he can escape some of the wrecks here. I mean, he could have a top 15 finish. And his cost is really, really decent. I mean, last week he was $7,000. This week he's gone up 100, so he's $7,100. But he's got 21 starts here at Dover. He's got 0 wins, 2 top 5s, and 12 top 10s. Now, granted, he's not in the best equipment, like I said, but he's making the best of it. And I still semi-hesitant on really playing him a ton this week. But I have to have some exposure for sure. It just, to me, really depends on how he practices tomorrow. But with, starting in that 28th position and his price point and the way that he's always performed at these short tracks, Boyer's just not a guy you can just overlook and say, oh, he's in crappy equipment, so I'm not going to play him. You really got to look at this guy as an option because I think some of the other fantasy NASCAR guys are not on him as much as they should be. And like we talked about, you never know what's going to happen here at Dover, but he definitely is going to be a guy I'm going to have some exposure to.
All right, man, I love you to death, but I completely disagree with you, and I am 100% fading Boyer this weekend without a second thought. Like, look, I know that he had a 37-point performance last week, but at $7,100, that's not what you're wanting out of that, right? Like that. I mean, to be honest, that's like basically you're saying he performed at his ceiling, and now that that's what his price is at. So basically, I have to perform a better than average performance out of him to get him to pay off his salary, and it's an opportunity cost. When I can play, you'll see the guy I'm going to recommend. I will put a straight bet on points out of that guy. Put $20 on it that I have the better guy, and I'm going to save $2,000 in the process. But dude. The real problem I have with Boyer is what you said. His equipment's crap, and he's literally cost you money if you played him on several different tracks because he has brake issues. Now, we're literally at a short track where you have to brake every time around, into the turns. I don't want a guy that's had notorious brake issues throughout the season at a short track. That is just playing Russian roulette in the fantasy sense, and you don't need to do it. And that's just where I'm at on Boyer. And so instead...
I got you. I mean, one thing I do want to say, though, is he's got an average start here of 17.7 and an average finish of 11.9. So,
right, but dude, all those
21 races. I know, he's with Harry Scott Jr. Racing this year. He doesn't have the equipment that he's used to. But I'm just telling you, I'm not saying that he's definitely going to have a fantastic finish. He's going to be just one of these one-off guys that I'm definitely going to have some exposure to. He's not going to be on every single team. That's why I said I was a little hesitant on him. Fair enough. He's one person that you do have to pay attention to.
Well, I disagree. I say you don't pay attention to him at all. Shelve him. Don't worry about him. He's too expensive. He's not going to get you there. I am completely fading. Clint Boyer is not even remotely considered on any You could offer to pay me money to put Boyer on a lineup, and I would not do it this week. That's where I'm at. I love you and respect you, bro, but his track history here means crap because he's not in a ride that's capable of duplicating that track history. Now, the real problem that I had is that one of the real problems, other than the bad equipment and the fact that he's let us down numerous times in the same exact position, is that he's 7,100. I would rather play Matty DiBenedetto at 5,100. He got us our 20 last week, and if you're talking about 10 points to save $2,000, that is ridiculous. I would rather get on the Matty D play. If you're going to pay up for the laps led guys in the fastest laps, you're going to need a super value guy to reach down. If you're playing that strategy, we know that magic number for a super value guy is right around the 20-point mark. Matty DB is one of the best sources for fantasy value. He doesn't have the track history here, which I think is going to lead people to not playing him, but he starts 35th. The only other one of the guys he's the only one of the guys that are starting in the low 30s that has a car that's capable of finishing top 20s, and with help, he can finish teens. we've seen that before out of Matty DB. If he does that, he's going to march you all the way to the winning the GPPs, and he's going to help you win at the right salary. This is why I was so adamant, Liehr, about the Boyer play, is because essentially I'm trading 10 points to save $2,000. Neither one of these cars are ever going to lead laps. They're never going to be the fastest car on the track. So, like, it is a straight up cost per point dollar analysis, and I would just rather sacrifice a little bit in potential, and I don't even think I'm doing that, to get Matty DiBenedetto and save $2,000. Your thoughts, buddy?
No, I'm right there with you, man. I really do like Matt DiBenedetto this week, and I'm really heartbroken because AW really liked him last week, and I was going to play him, and I took him out and put somebody else in, and wouldn't you know, that is one of the decisions that cost me the seat to Miami. But no, DiBenedetto is definitely a good play, specifically at that price point. You can't beat a guy costing $5,100. I think last week he was $5,200. No, he's $5,000 last week. But 21 points. I mean, that's all you're looking for. This guy, 20, 25, and on top of that, though, the best part is, he's starting from 35th, but he was practicing. He was 23rd fastest this morning. So we'll see what he does tomorrow. But if he's practicing right there in that same area, and specifically on the long runs. But that's the thing, is I don't know how many long runs that we are going to have here. And he's going to be one of those guys. He's starting back in the field, just like Boyer and all those other guys. And this is a short track, so they're going to get lapped. So it depends on how many laps. I like the Matt DiBenedetto play too. I mean, I won't argue with you on that one.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, then now you're just making me feel bad for arguing with you on your Boyer play, but not really. I
was kind of arguing with myself on the Boyer play because you know how much I really like Boyer.
Right, dude. No, that's why I love the way we do this show, man. I love being able to fire, because sometimes sometimes I need to hear that Boyer might be the right play, and sometimes you probably need to hear that I hate Boyer with a passion, and our viewers need to hear that too. I think it's very productive. Liehr, with that said, who's the guy you really dislike this week? It's time to take somebody to the garage. Now, remember, guys, this is the segment where we might not like the guy's price, we might not like where he's qualified, we might not like the equipment they're in. You're going to get a little bit of everything in these picks this week. Liehr, go ahead and send somebody to the garage, buddy.
All right. Well, we always hate to do this because it means that this person's not going to perform well. But I'm going to be going with the number 3 short stack, a.k.a. Maverick, Austin Dillon in the AAA vehicle this weekend. It's time to kiss your 2016 season adieu, my friend, and take that pretty tall girlfriend of yours and enjoy the off season. While you think about, what you could have done better this year, but congratulations on, making the chase for your first time in your career. I mean, that's definitely a large goal that you definitely accomplished this season. And I do envision you having, a bright future here in NASCAR, just not the rest of 2016. And specifically, and especially here at Dover, being the track you have to prove, that you have not, done well here, and you're probably not going to move on to the round of 12, where you're currently sitting at, which is 14th. He's got 2 top 5s, 0 top 10s, 0 top 10s. Starting average position is 17.2 with an average finish of 26.7. All of those are in running positions as well, and even having issues here in the spring and completing only 345 of 400 laps. His cost is $7,900 this week, which is too much to spend on somebody with this kind of track history. The pressure on this guy this weekend to make it to the round of 12, because he has to have a win or at least a top 3 finish here. And he's got to, as far as fantasy wise, though, he's got to lead laps. He's got to have fastest laps. And in order for you to put him on your team, you're just not going to get it this weekend, folks. And I hope you realize that. And I just don't see any situation in which he will pay off his salary unless something extraordinary and out of the ordinary happens, which I don't see that happening. And I can't put my money on that type of situation. So great 2016, my friend. Have a great rest of the 2016 season, bro. Hopefully, we'll see you here in a couple of weeks at Kansas, and I hope you enjoy your off season.
I like that little narrative part, and I like where your head's at. But bro, you're only doing the work on half the side of the coin, and that's the problem I have here. Is that like Austin? You can break it down one of two ways, right? He's got his back against the wall and has to like perform for the chase. He's only 5 points out. I think that means he races hard against the wall, and he's also one of the best place differential guys for the chase that you can play. And he's only what 7,800. Like
79.
79. Okay, fair enough. That's fairly cheap. You're getting a lot of goodness out of that guy. This is the play where I think it's a 50-50. He's either going to march up, be a place differential, and in the process of marching up, he might get some fastest laps. He won't lead any laps, but he might get some fastest laps on the way up. But
yeah.
I'm not terribly worried about him at that price. He's cheap enough, right in that range. I don't know. I think he either performs and gives you like that 50-point range where you want him and you'll need him, or he'll go backwards and be negative. You're not going to be in between with him this week. So I will have some Austin Dillon exposure, but I'm not going to be heavy on him. I wouldn't send him to the garage. That's just me. I like when people's backs are against the wall. I think that's what turns people into champions and what brings out the best in people competitively. And so I will probably ride it the other way in that.
Well, all I can tell you, man, is best of luck to you, and I'll be seeing you in Miami when I take you when I win this week.
Fair enough. Oh man, it'll be so fitting if my Austin Dillon lineup gets us the seat and you have to eat crow. That would be great. All right, my going to the garage play is going to probably surprise some people. I'm sending Keselowski to the garage at 9,100. I have two arguments for why you do not want to be on the pole setter this week. And the first argument is that he starts on the pole, and I don't even honestly have him leading a full lap before Truex takes the lead. Now, the reason why I say this is both Penske cars were running sub 10 in practice 1, and that included both in race trim and in qualifying trim. They were not fast. These cars did not look fast, and the drivers didn't look necessarily comfortable behind it. And especially if we get practice 2 and 3 washed out, there is zero chance I will be playing Keselowski off the pole. The second reason why I'm off of him is that he's so cheap. I think a chunk of people will avoid Truex and Harvick, do exactly what Liehr was talking about, and most of the JGR cars, and buy him, Logano, and the Hendricks cars, basically creating a lineup of Keselowski, Jimmy Johnson, going through those Elliott in that grouping, and probably throw Logano on there, and then you can buy 2 value plays and make that work. I think this is a super easy fade that will carry super high ownership with it, and as long as my race vision is right with Harvick and Truex, I don't need to be on Keselowski. I have him falling back and being a negative point earner. I think it's an easy fade. I could be wrong. This is where the money's made, as we say in fantasy NASCAR. But every time we've told somebody to not be on a pole setter because they're not on the fastest car, because they've been arbitrarily put there by the race being washed out, we've been right. Yeah. And I just think this is another one of those instances. Liehr, your thoughts?
As much as it painstakingly makes me feel to agree with you, because I am a Brad Keselowski fan. He's one of my favorite drivers. But I couldn't agree with you more, man. There was a really good stretch there where they were just really, really hot, and they were just rolling, doing really, really well. Now, here's the thing is, they haven't won a race yet in the chase, and they are starting from the pole because they are first right now in the chase, but it's just a combination of all 3 of the races. But we're fantasy players here. We're not talking about real NASCAR. I mean, obviously, real NASCAR produces the results that we have in fantasy, but we're talking from race to race, so we need him to perform very, very well in this race. And I know he's starting from the pole, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it from the number 2 team right now. As far as his price, I mean, 9,100, that's amazing for Brad Keselowski's talent. Mm-hmm. But I can't put my stock in a guy. He's got 13 starts here. He does have 1 win, which came back in 2012. But he's got 4 top 5s and 5 top 10s. But he basically is one of those types of drivers where I don't think he's going to be the dominator or separator this weekend. And that's the kind of driver that you have to have to take down your tournament this weekend, regardless if that's a GPP or the qualifier for the championship or your cash game, a heads up game. But I do think he's probably going to be a low owned guy because I think a majority of the fantasy NASCAR community will agree with us in this decision to go to the garage. But depending on how fast their car is tomorrow in the practices, and make sure that you watch that stuff because that plays a huge part into how they're going to perform into Sunday's race. But this morning he was practicing in the 19th position as far as the practice goes. So you can't put a whole heap of stock into just practice one, but it is a little bit of an indicator of how that car's doing. If they don't improve on those times as far as practice, I'm definitely going to be off of the Keselowski train. Right now, I might have a sprinkle of him here or two, but it's very hesitant for me to do that because I just don't see it starting from the pole. And I just have Martin Truex getting out in front of him either on the very first lap or within the first 5 laps of the race. And he's only got one direction to go, and that's back into the field. So with that starting on the pole, you don't get that place differential. You have to have fastest laps. You have to have laps led, and the number 2 team's just not going to accumulate enough of that to make it worth your while this weekend.
Yeah, dude. I love the Penske cars. Normally, they're just not. They don't look right this weekend, and until they do show that they're looking right, I just don't think you can play them, in my opinion. See, it'll be interesting on the ownership percentage whether he comes back high because he's on the pole, or whether or not the NASCAR community agrees with us on this play. And so we will see, as they say. Now, guys, it's time for us to go to the segment of our show where we put together an active lineup that will be in the contest that you can watch and can compete against this weekend. It'll be in the 15K lug nut on DraftKings. It's the $5
DraftKings. Thank you very much for upping the ante again on the lug nut because it was getting slim pickings there for a little while.
Yeah, and I just didn't like it being the same size as the $27 tournament. I like to have different field sizes at the different dollar levels. That's just me personally. But Liehr, where are we starting this off? We starting it off with Truex or Harvick? Which one? Or both?
Honestly, man, if I had my decision, I would be, because I would love to roll with Harvick, Truex, Kenseth, but that's the same winning team that you had to have last week. But my gut is telling me that you're not going to be able to put a quality team together with those 3. So my pick to go through that first and foremost would be Truex for sure, because he's going to be the early lap leader and he's got the best chance of staying out front most of the day.
If you do put Truex, Harvick, and Kenseth all in a lineup, it leaves you with 6,300 remaining for your last 3 drivers.
My next pick that I definitely want to have on the team for sure, if we can't roll Kenseth, is definitely going to be Chase Elliott. I just have a tremendous feeling about this kid this week. I really think that this guy is going to be the one to take it down, and I think he's got a real good shot at being the dominator, along with a guy we didn't really talk about, but Larson. I really like Larson this week too. He's also driving a Chevy this weekend as well, and he was also the fastest in the first practice here. So he's got something that he needs to prove this week as well, because right now the way that the chase sits, he's sitting right there on the cusp of not making it to the next round. So he's really, really got to have a good showing this weekend. And they know that the pressure is on them this weekend too. So I think starting from the 12th spot, he's going to be a good play as well. He is a good short track racer and likes to really run that high line on these really high banked tracks. So, my pick here would definitely be Chase Elliott.
All right, I would rather go Jimmy Johnson just because I think he has more of a propensity to lead laps than what Chase does, like traditionally. Like we've seen that out of them this year. Like Chase likes to stay in the top 3 and not lead laps, whereas Jimmy can. And I see where you're going. So let's go ahead and throw Chase on this lineup. That's fine. That leaves 6,566 remaining. See, we're back in the same territory by putting Chase on the lineup that we were with putting Kenseth, in my opinion. So and this is why I'm kind of anti-Chase this week, man. I would rather just take and throw him off and put Kenseth back on there and deal with 63, than 65 with Chase. You know what I mean? That extra $200 per driver doesn't do anything for me.
Okay, I mean, it sure.
It's still your burning rubber.
love,
It's still your burning rubber
I love,
pick, regardless. So,
right.
so
I mean, I definitely love both of them. So,
all right. So we'll do the Kenseth build then. So we got Truex, Harvick, Kenseth with 6,300 left. Where do we go now?
I think we definitely got to have salary relief and go with Matty DB.
Yeah, I think that's the good place to start. And that gives you 69 per for your last two. And I don't think you need to reach down really low for anybody remaining. Where are you going with 6,900 for two drivers remaining?
My pick, dude, would honestly be Menard.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think we have to put Menard on here. That leaves 7,600, which leaves you Casey Kane, Biffle, Newman, Boyer, Bain. You know how I feel about Boyer, so let's just keep that out of the lineup I'm paying for. In all honesty here, my pick is between Casey Kane and Greg Biffle.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the sting from the Biff last week, and I'm sorry for all our viewers that, thank you for your comments and your likes. We always love those. But man, what a disappointing finish for the number 16 in the Biffle team. I couldn't even give away our diecast card to somebody.
You know what, dude? I think that's an omen. We're going to roll it back with the Biff this week. We're going to say people are going to be scared off of him too. Like,
I couldn't even get out of the 30s last week, which was
tragic.
Heartbreaking.
So, dude, I say we roll him back, and we say that if he can get a top, what do we do? Top 10 finish this week? Is that what we did last week? Top 10?
Yeah.
All right, top. Yeah, dude. Actually, at Biffle's salary, all we need for him to do is finish top 12. So if we can get him a top 12 finish, we'll send out that car this week to somebody that likes.
Here's the crazy part, okay?
The likes and comments. Remember, guys, like and comment, and we'll send it out if he finishes top 12.
The crazy part is, so he started 32nd, finished 33rd last week, and he had 4 fastest laps for a monster 12 points, and he was $7,200. But yet this week, and he took a crap on people last week, and they raised his price another $300.
Oh, I know. So, that's why you're like, dude. This is why, like, if he does anything out of starting so
you're
low,
gonna be on an island.
You're on an island, and not to mention, dude, I think you're personally on an island starting the 3 studs. Most people are not going to do that. So just to recap this lineup really quick, it's Truex, Harvick, Kenseth, DiBenedetto, Menard, Biffle, and you guys can compete against that in the $5 lug nut. With that said, guys, it wraps up another Rubbin' His Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR show. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, if we can get Biff, because that lineup will win us some money. If we can get Biff into the top 12 and you comment and like the show, we'll send that Biffle car out to you. And it's an autographed sweet SpongeBob SquarePants car from the Kansas race last year. Remember to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends to do the same. And thanks for watching, guys. Liehr, say your goodbyes, buddy.
Thank you guys for watching this show. We really appreciate it. Obviously we love doing this show every single week. And, let us know how you guys think the show is and any improvements or anything that we can do. We'd love to bring them your way. But good luck to everybody out there this week. I'm definitely going to be chasing the qualifiers, the Super Satellites this week. Really, really want to secure one of those seats to Miami for the championship. But came really close last week. And that was only on 2 entries where some of these other guys are max entering at, 15 per. So, but good luck this week. And hope you guys have a great weekend. And thanks for watching the show. And if you're a sponsor, hit us up. We'll give you some love.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in.
Have a great weekend, everybody. See you next week, A-Dub.